Captain Ryan Carter sat quietly in the cockpit of his cargo ship, the Star Voyager, as it drifted through the vast emptiness of space. The hum of the ship's engines was the only sound in the room. Ryan wasn't nervous. He'd been in deep space many times before. But today, something felt different. It was as if the universe was quietly whispering to him. He couldn't explain why, but he had a strange feeling that something important was about to happen. Ryan was a simple man. He wasn't famous or rich, and he didn't have any special skills. He was just a pilot, a worker who transported goods from one planet to another. He was known for his honesty and his ability to get things done, no matter what. He had spent years flying between Earth and distant colonies, doing his job day after day. But today, he wasn't thinking about work. Something felt off in the air, like a storm was coming. Suddenly, a faint signal came through the ship's communication system. Ryan's eyes narrowed as he looked at the screen. The signal was weak, broken, but there was no mistaking it. Someone was out there, in trouble. Distress signal detected, the computer voice said calmly. Ryan quickly tapped a few buttons, bringing up the source of the signal. It was coming from a nearby asteroid field, deep in the outer rim. The signal's origin point was almost impossible to detect, but it was clear enough. A ship was in distress. Someone needed help. Without thinking, Ryan adjusted his course. He wasn't one to ignore people in need. After all, it was the right thing to do. He would be a fool to pass by without at least checking. The Star Voyager shifted direction and moved toward the source of the signal. As Ryan flew deeper into the asteroid field, he carefully navigated through the floating rocks, his eyes scanning for any sign of trouble. There was nothing unusual at first, just the eerie silence of space, broken only by the ship's low engine noise. Then Ryan saw it. A damaged vessel, floating silently among the asteroids. It was small, sleek, and clearly in bad shape. The hull was torn in several places, and sparks were flying from the exposed wiring. The ship was badly damaged, but there were signs of life. Ryan's heart raced as he skillfully guided his ship toward the wreck. His mind raced with questions. Who was on that ship? What had happened to them? And why was it so far out in a dangerous part of space? He docked the Star Voyager next to the wreck, his ship's magnetic clamps connecting with a soft thud. The airlock hissed as it opened, and Ryan prepared to exit. He grabbed his space suit and helmet, just in case the atmosphere inside the damaged ship was unstable. He had no idea what he was walking into, but he wasn't going to leave someone stranded. Stepping out into the void, Ryan made his way toward the wreck. The ship was small, and it didn't take long to find the hatch. It was jammed, but after a few tries, Ryan managed to pry it open. Inside, the ship was a mess. Broken pieces of metal and equipment littered the floor. The lights flickered, casting shadows across the dark interior. As Ryan moved through the ship, he noticed a strange, faint glow coming from one of the rooms. It wasn't like anything he had ever seen before. Cautiously, he approached the source of the light. Inside the room, lying unconscious on the floor, was a girl. She looked human, at least at first glance, but there was something about her that was different. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her hair was silver, and her eyes, even closed, seemed to shimmer with an unusual light. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. He had never seen anyone like her before. Without wasting any time, Ryan kneeled beside her, checking for signs of life. She was breathing, but weakly. He quickly checked her pulse. It was steady, but slow. She had been hurt, maybe even for a while, but she wasn't dead. Ryan wasn't sure what to do, but he knew one thing. He couldn't just leave her here. He carefully lifted her into his arms and carried her back to the Star Voyager. Every step felt heavier as he thought about what had happened to this girl. Where did she come from? Why was she out here in the middle of nowhere? Back on his ship, Ryan quickly placed her in the medical bay. The ship's automatic medical systems began to work, scanning her injuries and administering treatment. As the machine hummed to life, Ryan stood back, watching her closely. It wasn't long before her eyes fluttered open. At first, she looked confused, disoriented, but then she focused on Ryan. There was a moment of silence between them. Where am I?" she whispered in a soft, melodic voice. Ryan smiled gently, trying to reassure her. "You're safe. I found you in the wreck. You were hurt, but you'll be okay." She blinked, trying to make sense of his words. Then she stared at him with wide eyes. "You are human?" she asked, her voice full of wonder and disbelief. Ryan nodded. "Yes, I'm Captain Ryan Carter. Who are you?" The girl's expression softened, and she slowly sat up, wincing slightly from her injuries. "I am Lyra, from the Illithrian people. I never expected a human would save me." Ryan was stunned. He had heard of the Illithrians before. They were a mysterious, highly advanced race that kept mostly to themselves. They were known for their technology and wisdom, but they were also a bit cold. Not many humans had ever interacted with them. "Why were you out here?" Ryan asked, his curiosity getting the better of him. Lyra looked away, a shadow crossing her face. "I was on a mission, but something went wrong, very wrong." Ryan felt a pang of sympathy for her, but he didn't press further. She had been through enough. For now, all that mattered was that she was safe. Lyra slowly sat up on the bed in the Star Voyager's medical bay, still trying to process everything that had happened. She was no longer in the wrecked ship, the one that had almost taken her life. She was aboard a human vessel, and she had been saved by a human. The strange warmth in her chest grew stronger the more she thought about it. It was unlike anything she had ever felt before. Captain Ryan Carter was sitting nearby, watching her with a concerned look. He had been checking on her every few minutes since bringing her aboard. He wasn't sure if she had fully recovered, but she seemed stable now. "Thank you for saving me," Lyra said softly, her voice still a little weak, but full of gratitude. Ryan smiled, though there was a hint of confusion in his eyes. "I didn't really have a choice. I couldn't just leave you out there." Lyra nodded slowly. "I understand. But humans don't usually act like this, do they?" She looked at him carefully, her violet eyes studying his face as if trying to understand him. "Most of the time, they avoid aliens like me." Ryan felt a knot form in his stomach. He had heard of the Illithrians before, an advanced race of beings who had little interest in interacting with humans. Many believed they looked down on humanity, viewing humans as primitive. Ryan didn't want to offend her, but he couldn't help but ask, "Why were you so far out in space alone? Isn't it dangerous for someone like you to be out here without protection?" Lyra hesitated, her eyes flicking away from his. She clearly wasn't used to sharing such personal things, especially with someone from a different species. Finally, she spoke, her voice low. "I was on a mission for my people, but things didn't go as planned. I discovered something important, something that could change everything for the Illithrians." Ryan leaned forward, intrigued. "What was it? What did you discover?" Lyra took a deep breath and glanced out the small window of the ship, her eyes lost in the endless stars. "I can't tell you yet. It's not safe. There are those who want to silence me, to keep what I know hidden. My life is in danger because of it." Ryan felt a chill run through him as he realized the seriousness of the situation. Lyra wasn't just some traveler or scientist. She was carrying information that could cause great trouble for her people, and possibly others as well. He didn't fully understand it, but he could sense the weight of her words. "You're safe now," Ryan said, trying to offer some comfort. "As long as you're with me, I'll protect you. I won't let anyone hurt you." Lyra looked at him then, her eyes filled with a mixture of wonder and uncertainty. She had never met a human like him. In her people's history, humans were always viewed as reckless and unpredictable, a race that acted without thought. But Ryan wasn't like that. There was something in his eyes, something that told her he would keep his word. "Why are you helping me?" Lyra asked, still trying to understand this human. I am nothing to you. You don't even know me. Why would you risk your life for me?" Ryan was quiet for a moment, his thoughts weighing heavily on his mind. He wasn't sure how to explain it, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't leave her alone to face whatever dangers awaited her. He had been in enough life-threatening situations to understand that sometimes helping someone was the only choice that mattered. I guess it's just who I am," Ryan finally said. "I've seen too much of the galaxy, and I've learned that sometimes you have to do what's right, even if you don't fully understand it." Liara studied him for a moment, her expression softening. "You are different from what I thought," she said quietly. "You're not like other humans." Ryan chuckled, though it was a bit awkward. "I don't know if that's a compliment or not." Liara gave a small smile, her lips curving up slightly. It was a small gesture, but Ryan noticed it. It was the first time she had smiled since he found her. "You seem like a good person, Ryan Carter," Liara said sincerely. I think I may owe you my life." Ryan shook his head. "You don't owe me anything. Just promise me you'll stay safe." Liara nodded. "I promise." There was a long pause between them, the quiet hum of the ship filling the space. Liara looked out the window again, her thoughts heavy. She was grateful to Ryan, but she couldn't ignore the fear that still lingered inside her. She was no longer alone, but the threat from her own people still loomed large. They would come after her, she was sure of it, and she didn't know if Ryan would be able to protect her from them. As if sensing her unease, Ryan stood and walked over to the ship's control panel. "We're in a pretty remote area of space," he said. "It'll take a while before anyone can track us. We have some time to figure out what to do next." Liara turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "What do you think we should do?" Ryan thought for a moment before answering. "I think we need to keep moving. Stay ahead of whoever is after you, and get you somewhere safe. Once we get to a neutral system, we can figure things out." Liara nodded, feeling a small spark of hope. She wasn't sure what would happen next, but for the first time in a long while, she didn't feel completely alone. Ryan had saved her, and now, maybe, just maybe, he could help her get through whatever came next. For now, all she could do was trust him. The days that followed felt like a blur to Liara. Ryan kept the Star Voyager moving through deep space, always staying one step ahead of any danger. The ship's advanced navigation system was helpful, but it was the skill and quick thinking of Ryan that kept them safe. Every time they encountered a new obstacle, Ryan found a way around it. He wasn't just a pilot, he was a survivor. Liara watched him closely, trying to understand how he could remain so calm under pressure. He was always thinking ahead, always watching for signs of trouble. She was learning to trust him more and more, though part of her still wondered why he was doing all this for her. Was it just kindness, or something else? One evening, as they floated through an empty section of space, Ryan came to her with a serious look on his face. "I've been keeping an eye on our systems," he said, "and I think I've found something strange. We're not alone out here." Liara's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" I think we're being followed," Ryan said, his voice low. "I've detected traces of a ship's energy signature. It's faint, but it's there. Someone is trying to track us." Liara's mind raced. She had suspected that her enemies wouldn't stop until they caught her, but hearing it out loud made it feel real. "Who could be following us?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Ryan looked at her. "If I had to guess, I'd say it's the Elythrian warship that was chasing me before I found you. I don't know for sure, but I think they've been trying to hunt you down." Liara frowned. The Elythrians were a race of warriors, and they would not stop until they completed their mission. She was no stranger to their cold efficiency. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice filled with worry. The weight of her knowledge, the secret she carried, was heavy on her shoulders. And now, her enemies were closing in. Ryan paused, thinking carefully. "We keep moving, but we need to do it smarter. We can't just run forever. I'll find a way to lose them. Liara nodded, trusting him. She didn't know much about human tactics or warships, but she had seen enough to know that Ryan had a way of thinking outside the box. Ryan quickly got to work, setting new course points and making adjustments to the ship's systems. He was a man of action, and Liara admired the way he focused when there was a problem to solve. In the hours that followed, they worked together, Ryan flying the ship while Liara assisted with what little she could, offering advice based on her knowledge of Elythrian technology. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. As the hours passed, the tension in the ship grew. Liara could feel it in the air, a tightness that seemed to wrap around them both. They were running out of time, and the warship was getting closer. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Ryan's voice cut through the silence. "We're almost there. I have an idea, but it's risky. I need your help." Liara turned to him, her heart pounding. "What do you need me to do?" Ryan gave her a determined look. "We're going to use the asteroid field up ahead to hide the ship's energy signature. I'll fly us close to a large asteroid, and I need you to work the ship's systems to create a decoy signal. If we're lucky, the warship won't be able to track us." Liara didn't hesitate. She had come this far, and she wasn't going to let fear stop her now. "I can do that." Together, they moved quickly, preparing for the next phase of their plan. Liara took her place at the console, her fingers flying over the controls. She worked with precision, activating the ship's cloaking system and setting up the decoy signals. It wasn't easy. Elythrian technology was advanced, and it took all of Liara's knowledge to make the decoy look convincing, but she was determined to help. Ryan guided the Star Voyager into the asteroid field, carefully avoiding the larger rocks as he made his way toward the target. His mind was focused entirely on the task at hand. There was no room for error. One wrong move, and they would be caught. "Ready?" Ryan asked, his voice calm but filled with urgency. Liara nodded, though her heart was racing. "Ready." Ryan gave her a small smile before he made a sharp turn, bringing the ship close to a large asteroid. He activated the decoy signal, watching the ship's display as the signal was sent out into space. The decoy would mimic the energy signature of the Star Voyager, making it look like they were still in the same location. It was their best shot. For a few tense moments, nothing happened. Liara held her breath, hoping that the Elythrian warship would take the bait. Then, a beep sounded from the control panel. "It worked," Ryan said, his voice filled with relief. "They're following the decoy. We've lost them." Liara couldn't help but let out a small sigh of relief. She leaned back in her chair, feeling a wave of exhaustion wash over her. They had made it through for now. Ryan glanced over at her. "We did it," he said with a smile. "You were incredible." Liara looked at him, surprised by his praise. It wasn't something she was used to hearing. She had always been taught to keep her emotions in check, to focus only on the mission. But with Ryan, she felt something different. She felt a connection, a bond that was slowly growing stronger. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I couldn't have done it without you." Ryan's smile widened, and for a moment, it felt as if the weight of the universe had been lifted off both their shoulders. They were safe for now, but Liara knew that their journey was far from over. And whatever happened next, she was ready to face it with Ryan by her side. For the next few days, the Star Voyager sailed through the endless stretches of space, moving at a steady pace. Ryan and Liara had become accustomed to the rhythm of life on the ship. Ryan continued to fly, expertly navigating through the vast emptiness, while Liara assisted him when needed, keeping the systems in top shape. Though the danger from the Elythrian warship had passed, Liara still couldn't shake the feeling that they weren't truly safe. She had been running for too long, always looking over her shoulder, and it felt as though something was about to catch up with her. She had shared a little about her mission with Ryan, but the most important part, the part that could change everything, was still locked inside her. She had learned to trust Ryan, and yet there was still a part of her that hesitated. Her people had always been secretive, their knowledge and technologies carefully guarded. She had never expected to share this with anyone, especially not with a human. But now, with the looming threat of the Illithrians still hanging over them, she knew she had no choice. One evening, as the stars outside the ship's window glittered like diamonds, Lyra found Ryan in the ship's common area, looking over star charts. He was focused, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I need to talk to you," Lyra said, her voice serious. Ryan looked up, surprised by the change in her tone. "What's on your mind?" Lyra hesitated, then took a deep breath. She had made the decision. It was time to tell him everything. "I told you before that I was on a mission," she began. "But I didn't tell you what it was, and I think you need to know." Ryan set down the star charts and nodded. "You don't have to explain if you don't want to." But Lyra could see the curiosity in his eyes. She had known for a while now that Ryan had questions, and maybe it was time to give him some answers. For the first time, she felt like she owed it to him. "I was sent to investigate a dangerous secret," Lyra said, her voice low. "A secret that could change the future of the Illithrian people." Ryan leaned forward, his interest piqued. "What kind of secret?" Lyra looked away for a moment, gathering her thoughts. "There is a powerful artifact, something ancient, that my people discovered in a distant part of space. It has the potential to give whoever controls it great power. The Illithrians believe it's the key to their survival, but they don't understand what it really is." Ryan's brow furrowed. "And you were sent to find it?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, but the artifact is dangerous. It's not just a tool, it's a force. If it falls into the wrong hands, it could destroy everything. And now, there are people, Illithrians, who want it for their own gain. They will stop at nothing to get it." Ryan remained silent for a moment, processing her words. He had known Lyra was running from something, but he hadn't realized just how high the stakes were. "And that's why they're after you." Lyra's eyes darkened. "Yes, they don't want anyone to stop them from using the artifact. I'm the only one who knows where it is hidden. If they catch me, they will use whatever force is necessary to make me reveal the location." Ryan stood up and walked over to the window, his hands resting on the sill as he stared out at the stars. He wasn't sure what to say. This was bigger than anything he had ever dealt with. He had been part of many dangerous situations in space, but this was something else entirely. After a long pause, Ryan turned back to Lyra. "We can't let that happen. We can't let them get their hands on that artifact." Lyra's expression softened. "I know, but there's more you need to understand. The artifact isn't just powerful, it's alive. It has a consciousness, it can sense emotions, thoughts, and it can control minds." Ryan's eyes widened. "Wait, you mean it can influence people's decisions?" Lyra nodded gravely. "Yes. And it's dangerous. I've seen its power firsthand. If the wrong person touches it, they become a puppet, controlled by the artifact. It's like it takes over their will." Ryan's heart raced as he thought about the implications. If the artifact really was as dangerous as Lyra said, then no one should be allowed to control it. Not even the Illithrians, no matter how advanced they were. "We need to find it before they do," Ryan said, determination in his voice. "We need to get to it first. It's the only way to keep it from falling into the wrong hands." Lyra looked at him, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had been afraid to trust anyone with this secret, but now, with Ryan by her side, she felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt in a long time. She knew he was right. They had to find the artifact before it was too late. "I'm glad you're on my side," Lyra said quietly, her voice filled with emotion. Ryan gave her a reassuring smile. "You're not alone in this, Lyra. I promised I would protect you. And I will. Together, we'll make sure the artifact doesn't fall into the wrong hands." There was a long silence between them, and for a moment, the weight of their situation seemed almost unbearable. But in that silence, something else grew, a bond between them, a trust that had been built through their shared struggle. Lyra looked at Ryan, her eyes softening. "Thank you. I don't know what I would do without you." Ryan met her gaze, a small smile on his face. "You don't have to worry about that. We'll get through this together." As the stars stretched on endlessly outside, they knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But for the first time in a long time, Lyra felt like she wasn't facing it alone. The journey to find the artifact was not an easy one. Ryan and Lyra knew that the clock was ticking. Every moment that passed brought them closer to the Elythrians who were hunting them, and every step they took in the vast, unknown space seemed to push them into more danger. Lyra, who had once been sure of her mission, now found herself uncertain. She had always been alone in her struggles, but with Ryan beside her, the weight of the task felt a little lighter. She could sense that he wasn't just helping her out of duty or kindness. There was something deeper between them. Though neither of them had spoken about it openly, it was clear that the bond they shared had grown stronger. Ryan, on the other hand, found himself thinking about Lyra more than he ever thought he would. She wasn't like the others he had met in space. She was intelligent, brave, and determined. But what stood out the most was the kindness she showed despite everything she had gone through. There were times when he saw her stare out at the stars, lost in thought, and he wondered what it was like to carry such a heavy burden. He knew that finding the artifact was a dangerous task, but he was determined to help her, no matter what it took. One evening, as they entered a dense nebula, Lyra sat by the ship's controls, studying a map of the galaxy. She had marked several locations, each one leading them closer to the artifact. According to her calculations, they were nearing an old, forgotten star system where the artifact was said to be hidden. The map had been passed down through Elythrian generations, and it was the only clue they had left. "Ryan," Lyra said, breaking the silence, "we're getting closer. The artifact should be within reach now." Ryan glanced over from the cockpit. "How do we know it's still there? What if someone's already found it?" Lyra's eyes narrowed. "We don't know for sure, but the artifact has a way of hiding itself. Even if others were close, it would have moved on its own." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "You mean it can move?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, it's not just a relic. It has its own consciousness. It changes locations to stay hidden from those who seek to control it." Ryan frowned, trying to process this new information. "That's kind of terrifying. But it sounds like it's our best chance." Lyra agreed. She had always known the risks of seeking the artifact. But now, they felt even more real. The closer they got, the more the pressure mounted. She could feel the danger surrounding them, and she didn't want to let Ryan down. As the days passed, the tension between them grew. They didn't speak much, but the silence was comfortable. There were moments when Ryan would catch Lyra looking at him, and when their eyes met, there was something unspoken, an understanding, a connection. Finally, after several more days of travel, they arrived at the forgotten star system. It was a cold, dark place, filled with scattered asteroids and abandoned planets. The system had once been home to a thriving Elythrian colony, but now it was silent, its secrets buried deep beneath the surface. Ryan expertly maneuvered the Star Voyager through the asteroid belt, carefully avoiding collisions. The ship's sensors picked up an ancient, decaying station on one of the distant moons. This was where the map had indicated the artifact was hidden. The station was old, its structures were in ruins, and the signals it sent out were weak. "This is it," Lyra said, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and fear. "The artifact is here somewhere." Ryan nodded. "I'll land us nearby. We need to be careful. There's no telling what kind of security measures the station has." They landed the ship on the surface of a nearby moon, its surface cracked and barren. The station's wreckage loomed in the distance, a reminder of what had once been. Lyra felt a chill run through her as they approached the ruins. She had been here before, many years ago, but it looked so different now. Time had worn the station down, leaving only fragments of the past. I'll stay here and keep the ship ready, Ryan said, turning to Lyra. You go ahead. If anything goes wrong, I'll be ready to get you out of here. Lyra nodded, grateful for his constant support. Thank you. She stepped out of the ship, her boots crunching against the rocky surface as she made her way toward the ruins. The closer she got to the station, the more uneasy she felt. The air seemed to grow colder, and a strange energy filled the space around her. It was as if the station itself was waiting for something or someone. When Lyra entered the station's main chamber, she was struck by the silence. There were no sounds, no signs of life. The walls were covered in strange symbols, and the floors were littered with debris. She walked carefully through the dark corridors, following the faint signal that the artifact was emitting. As she approached the center of the station, she felt a presence. The artifact was close, she could sense it. The room ahead of her was dimly lit, but the soft glow coming from within drew her in. She stepped into the chamber, and there it was, the artifact. It lay in the center of the room, a glowing orb surrounded by ancient runes. Its light flickered and pulsed with a strange energy. Lyra felt her heart race as she approached it. She knew that touching it would be dangerous, but she had no choice. It was the key to everything, the key to saving her people. But as she reached out, she felt a cold, familiar presence. It wasn't just the artifact calling to her. There were others. Lyra stood frozen in front of the glowing artifact. Its soft, pulsing light seemed to reach out to her, as though it was calling her name. The air in the room felt thick, charged with energy. It was both beautiful and terrifying. She had come so far, and now, standing here, she was closer than ever to her goal. But a part of her hesitated. She had been warned about this moment. The artifact was more than just an object. It was alive. Its power was unlike anything Lyra had ever encountered. And now, as she reached out toward it, she could feel its influence pulling at her thoughts. It was like a whisper in the back of her mind, urging her to take it, to claim it as her own. But Lyra knew better than to let it control her. She had to stay focused, to resist its pull. The Elythrians would stop at nothing to get their hands on it, and she couldn't let them win. If the artifact fell into the wrong hands, everything would be lost. Suddenly, the silence around her was broken by a low hum, a sound like distant engines. Lyra's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't alone. Turning quickly, she scanned the chamber, her eyes narrowing as she tried to make sense of the noise. The station was supposed to be abandoned, yet the hum grew louder. Someone was coming. She stepped back, her hand instinctively going to the sidearm at her waist. She knew it wouldn't be enough to defend herself against the Elythrians, but it was all she had. She had to be ready. The sound grew louder, closer. Lyra's breath quickened, and she pressed herself against the wall, her eyes darting around the dark room for any sign of movement. Then, out of the shadows, figures emerged. Figures in dark, sleek armor, the Elythrians. Lyra's heart raced as she recognized them. Their cold, calculating eyes glowed under their helmets, and their weapons were pointed directly at her. There were at least 5 of them, led by a tall, imposing figure she instantly recognized, Commander Varn. He was the one who had been chasing her across the stars. "So, you finally found it," Varn said, his voice cold and emotionless. "You were always one step ahead of us, Lyra. But now, your little mission ends here." Lyra's grip on her weapon tightened. "I won't let you have it," she said, her voice steady despite the fear that surged through her. "You don't understand what you're dealing with. It's not just a weapon. It's a force. If you take it, you'll destroy everything." Varn scoffed, taking a step closer to her. "You're weak, Lyra. You always have been. You've spent your life running, hiding. But now you have nowhere to go." Lyra's mind raced. She couldn't fight them all. She had to think fast. She glanced back at the artifact, still glowing in the center of the room. It was the only way to stop them, but she couldn't just take it without risking everything. As if sensing her inner turmoil, Varn gave a cruel smile. "You're conflicted. You know what you must do. Hand over the artifact, and we'll let you live." Liara shook her head. "No, you'll never understand. You think you can control it, but it will only control you." The Illithrians laughed, their voices echoing off the walls. "It's too late for you to stop us," Varn said. "The artifact is ours. Now surrender." Liara's pulse raced, but she didn't move. Her eyes met Varn's, and in that moment, she knew there was no going back. She would not give up. Not now. Not ever. Just as the Illithrians began to move toward her, Liara heard a familiar voice crackle through her comm device. "Liara, we've got company." It was Ryan's voice, filled with urgency. "We're surrounded. Get back to the ship." Liara's heart leaped. She had never been more grateful to hear his voice. She didn't hesitate. She turned and sprinted toward the exit, her mind set on one goal: get back to the Star Voyager. Behind her, the Illithrians were in pursuit, their footsteps echoing loudly in the narrow corridors of the station. Liara didn't look back. She knew she couldn't outrun them, but she had to try. As she raced through the darkened hallways, Liara's mind worked quickly. She needed a plan. There had to be something, anything, she could use to delay them long enough to escape. She spotted an old control panel on the wall. It looked like the station's main power grid. If she could overload it, she might be able to buy some time. But there was no time to waste. She reached the control panel, her fingers flying over the buttons as she activated the system. The hum of the station shifted, and the lights flickered. Liara's heart pounded in her chest as she initiated the overload. Behind her, the Illithrians were getting closer. She could hear their heavy breathing and the clatter of their boots as they rounded the corner. She had to finish the job before they caught up to her. The station groaned, its old systems straining under the pressure. Just as the Illithrians entered the room, a loud explosion rang out. The power grid exploded in a shower of sparks, and the station's lights went out completely. Liara didn't wait. She bolted toward the exit, her heart in her throat. She had done it. She had created enough of a distraction. She reached the Star Voyager just as the Illithrians' voices echoed behind her. The ship's engines hummed to life as Ryan worked quickly to lift off. "Go. Now," Ryan shouted as Liara scrambled into the cockpit. Without hesitation, Ryan punched in the coordinates and shot the ship into the sky. Liara looked out the window, watching as the station behind them disappeared into the distance, consumed by the chaos they had left behind. But she knew this was just the beginning. The Illithrians would never stop coming, and they had the artifact. The true battle had only just begun. The Star Voyager flew silently through the dark space, the distant stars shining like tiny diamonds against the infinite black canvas. Liara sat in the cockpit beside Ryan, both of them focused on the vast unknown ahead. The station they had just left was now a distant memory, consumed by the explosion they'd triggered to escape. But the weight of the battle was far from over. Liara looked at Ryan, her heart heavy with the truth they now carried. The Illithrians had the artifact. There was no time to waste. They would stop at nothing to control its power, and the consequences of its misuse would be disastrous not just for her people, but for the entire galaxy. Ryan broke the silence, his voice calm but filled with determination. "We can't let them win, Lara. We have to get it back. I know it's risky, but we have no choice." Liara nodded, her mind working over the situation. She knew that Ryan was right. She couldn't let the artifact fall into the wrong hands, especially not the Illithrians. But getting it back would be dangerous. She had never imagined she would be facing this battle with someone by her side. Yet here she was, feeling more connected to him than ever before. "We need a plan," Liara said, her voice steady. "The Illithrians won't stop. They'll use everything they have to track us down. We have to stay one step ahead." Ryan's eyes locked onto hers. "I've been thinking about that. There's a place, a hidden base on the edge of the galaxy. It's not well known, but it could be a safe haven for us. If we can get there, we can regroup, plan our next move, and figure out how to get the artifact back. Lyara's heart skipped a beat. She had heard rumors of this hidden base, a place where those who opposed the Elithrians could find shelter. It was risky, but it might be their only chance. "Where is it?" she asked, her voice sharp with urgency. Ryan glanced at the star map on the ship's console, his fingers quickly inputting coordinates. "It's a small system, far from the main trade routes. It's not easy to find, but if we're careful, we can make it." Lyara's mind raced. She knew that the Elithrians would be searching for them, but if they could reach this base, they might be able to gain the help they needed. "Let's go," she said firmly. Ryan nodded, and without another word, he piloted the ship into the stars. The journey was long, but it was their only option. As the hours passed, the tension between them seemed to fade. They worked together, coordinating their efforts to ensure the ship remained undetected. Lyara sat by Ryan's side, her thoughts drifting, and for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to relax. She was no longer alone. As they entered the hidden system, the faint glow of a distant planet greeted them. It was a cold, barren world, its surface covered with dust and rock. But it was the perfect hiding place. "Here we are," Ryan said, bringing the ship down into the atmosphere. "This is it." Lyara looked out the window, seeing the hidden base in the distance. It was tucked away in a canyon, nearly invisible unless you knew exactly where to look. It was a perfect place for those who needed to disappear. The Star Voyager landed smoothly, and Ryan powered down the engines. The silence of the barren world surrounded them. And for a moment, neither of them spoke. They knew that what came next would determine everything. Lyara looked at Ryan, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Ryan, for everything. I never expected to find someone like you. I never expected to be here, fighting alongside someone who cares." Ryan met her gaze, his eyes softening. "You don't have to thank me. You've shown me what it means to fight for something that matters. I'm here because I believe in what you're doing. I believe in you." Lyara's heart swelled. She had been running for so long, never knowing who she could trust. But now, with Ryan by her side, she didn't feel so alone. Together, they had faced impossible odds and had made it this far. She knew that, no matter what happened next, they would face it together. They stepped out of the ship and into the cold air. The base was quiet, but there were signs of life. Faint lights glowing in the distance, the soft hum of machinery. They were not alone. People had gathered here, those who had escaped the tyranny of the Elithrians and who were ready to fight back. As they approached the entrance to the base, a figure stepped forward to greet them. It was a tall, muscular man, with sharp eyes and a stern expression. "You must be Lyara," the man said, his voice low but welcoming. "We've been expecting you." Lyara nodded, surprised. "How did you know we were coming?" "We've had our eyes on the Elithrians for some time," the man replied. "We've been watching their movements, and we knew they would come after you. We've been preparing for this." Lyara felt a sense of relief wash over her. This was the place where she could regroup, where they could fight back. But even as she felt the comfort of safety, she knew that the battle wasn't over. The Elithrians would come for them, and they would have to be ready. "We need to plan," Lyara said, her voice filled with determination. "The artifact must be recovered before it's too late. We can't let the Elithrians use its power for their own gain." The man nodded, his face hardening with resolve. "We'll help you. Together, we can take them down." Ryan stepped beside Lyara, his eyes meeting hers. In that moment, she knew they were ready. They had faced the darkness, and now they were ready to fight for the light. The fight was far from over, but with Ryan by her side and the support of those who had gathered here, Lyara felt a spark of hope. They would win. They had to.